You've said 1,000 affirmations in your life. You've written them, whispered them, maybe even shouted them. But deep down, you've always wondered, why doesn't it work the way they say it does? You try to believe, but your mind argues. You visualize, but nothing changes. And then one day you hear about a man named Neville Goddard who said something that sounded almost impossible. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Live as though it were already true. At first, it sounds poetic, but then you realize he wasn't speaking metaphorically. He meant it literally. What if you could step into the version of you who already has everything you desire, the wealth, the peace, the freedom, and by doing so, bend reality itself? That's what this is about. There is a single affirmation, one simple sentence, that unlocks this forgotten law. Not because of the words themselves, but because of what happens inside you when you truly say them. By the end of this experience, you won't just believe in manifestation. You'll feel it moving through you, rearranging your world in real time. So, take a breath. Let the noise fade. And as we begin this journey, know this. Every word you're about to hear is designed to remind you who you really are, the one who creates. Because this isn't a lesson, it's an awakening. And once you awaken, you can never go back. You wake up one morning, and something feels different. The light in the room isn't brighter. The world outside hasn't changed, but there's a stillness, a quiet certainty moving beneath your thoughts. It's as if, for the first time, you know that what you want is already here. Not coming, not distant, but present, invisible, waiting to be recognized. This feeling doesn't come from effort. It doesn't come from repeating affirmations until your throat tightens. It arrives when you stop chasing and start remembering. You begin to see the truth Neville whispered through every lecture. You are not becoming wealthy. You are remembering that you already are. Every desire that burns in you, money, success, peace, love, isn't a request sent to the universe. It's a message from your deeper self saying, you've forgotten. Wake up. You see, desire isn't lack. It's memory. A memory of the state you've already lived in, somewhere in consciousness. And the moment you feel it again, you step back into that reality. It's like a dream you wake up inside of. You realize you were the dreamer all along. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine holding the result you've been waiting for, not with desperate hope, but with quiet familiarity. You've touched it before. You've known it. That rush in your chest, that spark behind your ribs, that's recognition. That's your consciousness aligning with what was always yours. Neville said, creation is finished. The world outside merely reflects states of consciousness. You begin to see what he meant. There is no future version of you that's richer, freer, or more powerful. There's only now infinite versions of it, each one waiting for you to identify with it completely. And in this moment, you start to choose differently. You stop thinking like someone waiting for money. You start feeling like someone who has it. You stop asking when it will come and begin walking, speaking, breathing like it's already done. That's when reality begins to bend, not in fireworks or miracles, but in subtle, almost invisible ways. A message arrives, an idea forms, an opportunity you once overlooked suddenly glows with possibility. It's not coincidence. It's reflection. Your inner world is speaking in the language of events. You realize something profound. You never needed to attract money. You only needed to become aware of the state where it already exists. And as that realization deepens, a strange calm replaces your old anxiety. You stop checking the results. You stop asking how. Because you finally understand, it was never about getting, it was about being. This is the moment you cross the invisible line, the moment you step out of the version of you that hopes and into the one that knows. Everything you've asked for is already here, waiting for you to remember it. There's a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when words stop being words, when they pierce the surface of your mind and start rearranging something deeper. You felt it before. When someone told you, "I love you," for the first time. When you heard a truth that shattered your excuses. When a sentence changed the course of your entire life. This is one of those sentences. Neville called it the secret of assumption. A simple statement that, when spoken with awareness, dissolves the barrier between thought and thing, between wish and fact. You might think you need to say it thousands of times, but no, you only need to feel it once, completely. The sentence is this: I am wealth, I am abundance, I am the power that creates it all. When you speak it aloud, it feels strange at first. Your old self resists it. Your logical mind whispers, "But I'm not." That's the moment most people stop. The instant the illusion of limitation begins to crack. But you don't stop. You breathe, you speak it again, slower this time, and as the words flow, they start to mean something different. I am wealth. Not I will be, not I want to be, but I am. It's a declaration of identity, not desire, because what you claim as I am becomes your reality. When you say, "I am wealth," you aren't summoning money from the outside world. You're activating the part of you that already owns it in consciousness. The second line, "I am abundance," that's the rhythm of expansion. It's not about things or numbers. It's about the feeling of enoughness, the infinite flow that never ends. When you speak it, your heart begins to relax. The tension of lack dissolves. You stop needing and start radiating, and then comes the final truth: I am the power that creates it all. That's the shift. That's the lightning strike behind the words. You realize that money, success, and opportunity were never outside of you. They were extensions of your imagination, your creative power wearing different masks. When you say this sentence slowly, something incredible begins to happen. You stop waiting for signs and start noticing them everywhere. The outer world starts echoing your new vibration. A forgotten debt clears. A payment arrives early. A stranger mentions an opportunity that fits your dream perfectly. And you feel that quiet smile inside you, the one that says, "Of course, it was always me." Every time you speak this affirmation, you're not programming your subconscious. You're reminding it. You're reintroducing yourself to the version of you who never worried about money, because wealth was your natural state. You begin to walk differently. Your energy changes. You talk less about manifesting and more about being. That's how you reprogram reality, not by fighting what is, but by choosing what's true in a higher dimension of yourself and living from that truth now. You are not creating wealth. You are remembering that you are wealth. And when that understanding finally sinks in, you can feel the old patterns dissolving. The scarcity, the doubt, the waiting. All that's left is this quiet, undeniable awareness. You have become the sentence, and now the sentence must become your world. You've said the words. You've felt the power flicker inside you. For a moment, everything felt aligned, as if the entire universe bowed to your declaration. But then, something shifts. The doubts return. Bills arrive. Old patterns whisper, "See, nothing's changed." And that familiar heaviness in your chest makes its way back quietly, persistently. This is the test, not from the universe, not from any outside force, but from your old self, the identity you're outgrowing. Every time you declare, "I am wealth," the old self, built on fear and lack, trembles. It doesn't want to die. It wants to survive, even if that means keeping you small. So it whispers, it questions, it tempts you to check the evidence. It wants you to look at the world and say, "See, it isn't working." That's the trap, because the moment you search for proof, you've already stepped out of faith. You've returned to the version of you that doubts, that believes only what the eyes can see. But reality doesn't shift through sight. It shifts through state, through what you persist in believing, even when nothing appears to support it. This is where most people stop. They feel the discomfort and think it means failure. They don't realize resistance is proof that the transformation is happening. Think of it this way: if you've lived for years as someone who struggles, your subconscious has built walls to keep that identity safe. Now, when you declare, "I am wealth," you're tearing those walls down, and walls don't crumble quietly. They shake, they resist, they fight for their existence. So when you feel that doubt, that pull back to the old, don't fight it, observe it, smile at it. It's only the echo of who you were, and echoes have no power once you stop answering them. This is the point where Neville's teaching becomes more than philosophy. He said, persist in the assumption that your desire is fulfilled, and it will harden into fact. Persistence, that's the real alchemy. Not repeating words endlessly, but holding the state when it's hardest to do so. Holding the vision when the world says you're delusional. Because faith isn't proven when it's easy. It's proven when everything around you contradicts it, and you still choose to stand firm. In those moments, something sacred happens inside you. You start to notice that the fear no longer controls you. You can feel it rise, but it passes through. You've stopped identifying with it. That's how you know the old self is dying. And when it does, the new reality begins to surface, effortlessly. So when resistance appears, don't retreat. Lean into it. Because on the other side of that discomfort lies the first tangible proof that you are no longer who you were. The universe isn't testing you, it's reflecting you, showing you every belief that can't come with you into the new state. And once you see that clearly, you stop fearing the resistance. You welcome it, you understand. Every challenge is the sound of your old world breaking apart to make room for the one you've already claimed. You keep going. You hold the state even when nothing seems to move. Days blur together, yet something subtle starts to shimmer beneath the surface of ordinary life. It begins small. A conversation overheard that feels tailored just for you, an email with an unexpected opportunity, a friend mentioning a chance encounter that sounds almost like the thing you've been imagining. They're fragments, tiny glints of proof that reality is no longer static. At first, you want to shrug them off, but you can't. Something inside you recognizes the pattern. The air feels charged, as if the world is listening. You start to understand. The universe was never distant. It was always responsive, waiting for a clear signal from you. Every thought, every word, every subtle assumption is a command. And now you're beginning to issue them consciously. You wake up one morning and feel lighter. Your chest no longer tightens when you think about money. Instead, there's a steady rhythm, a quiet certainty pulsing beneath your breath. The fear isn't gone, but it doesn't own you. It's smaller now, almost irrelevant. You look around and realize how differently you move. You speak slower, more deliberately. You make decisions as if you trust yourself again. You start treating your time like something precious. You notice that the people around you begin to respond to this new version of you. They call you confident. They call you lucky. But you know the truth. You've changed the lens, and the world is simply catching up. This is the moment reality bends, not through miracles, but through recognition. It's as if you're watching the same movie, but the soundtrack has shifted, and suddenly every scene means something new. Money appears in curious ways, a refund you forgot about, a stranger repaying an old debt, a business idea landing in your mind so clear it feels like a download. Each sign whispers, you're in alignment now. Keep walking. The beauty of this stage is its subtlety. The world doesn't crash open. It rearranges itself quietly, perfectly. And that's how you know it's real. Real transformation doesn't arrive with thunder, it arrives with inevitability. You remember Neville's words, "The world is yourself pushed out," and suddenly that sentence stops sounding mystical. You see it happening. Everything you once blamed or chased was simply reflecting your inner conversations. Now those inner conversations have changed. You speak differently to yourself. You ask better questions. You tell new stories. Instead of, "How will it happen?" you ask, "How does it feel now that it has?" Instead of, "What if it doesn't work?" you whisper, "What if it already did?" And the universe answers, always. Soon, you'll notice something even stranger. People begin to mirror your state. They treat you with more respect. They offer support without knowing why. They sense your certainty and respond in kind. You realize then that manifestation was never about forcing outcomes. It was about embodying truth until the world had no choice but to reflect it. Reality isn't bending to your will. It's remembering who you are, and in that moment, standing between the life you had and the one unfolding before your eyes, you feel something that no amount of money can buy, the quiet, unshakable peace of someone who knows they are the cause, not the effect. This is the beginning of real power, the calm that comes when you stop waiting for proof because you have become it. It happens quietly, almost invisibly. No trumpet sound, no sudden flash of light, just a subtle click somewhere deep inside you. A knowing that you can never go back to who you were. You've crossed an invisible threshold. Something fundamental has changed in the way you see yourself. You no longer chase abundance. You no longer beg for evidence. You simply live from it, like breathing, like walking, like being. That's the quantum shift, not a miracle that appears outside you, but an internal reconfiguration of identity. The one who struggled, who doubted, who hoped, is dissolving, and in their place stands the observer, the creator, the quiet force that commands reality with thought alone. You start to notice that your reactions have changed. A bill arrives, and instead of panic, you feel neutrality. You trust that it's already taken care of, and somehow it always is. An unexpected expense, it's covered. A door closes. Another one opens so naturally that you almost laugh. The universe begins to feel like a friend who knows your name, not a test you have to pass. You realize that what Neville called imagination is not something you use. It's something you are. Every time you picture yourself thriving, you are moving through timelines, sliding into realities that match that frequency. This is why persistence matters, not because repetition forces change, but because it anchors your consciousness into the version of you who already lives the wish fulfilled. It's like tuning a radio. The signal was always there. You just had to adjust the dial. The more you dwell in that new state, the more the old world starts to feel unreal, like a dream you once believed in, but can't take seriously anymore. People might notice the difference. They'll say you seem calmer, lighter, almost glowing. They'll assume something external happened, a promotion, a win, some lucky break. But you'll smile because you know the truth. Nothing happened first. You changed. And the outer world is simply your mirror catching up. You begin to taste freedom, not the kind that comes from wealth, but the kind that comes from mastery. You realize that every outcome is optional, every circumstance malleable. It's all imagination in motion. You start asking yourself different questions. Who am I choosing to be today? What would the wealthy version of me do right now? How would they think, walk, breathe, respond? And then you act from that state, not to get there, but because you are there. This is the quantum moment Neville described without the science, when consciousness and reality merge, and what once seemed impossible becomes ordinary. You look around and sense the truth in every breath. You're no longer waiting for abundance. You're radiating it. You don't hope for the future anymore. You embody it now. And as this realization deepens, you start to see something astonishing. Life no longer feels random. It feels orchestrated by you. Everything you once feared losing was never the source of your security. The source has always been within, the eternal I am. You whisper it again, softly, not as a wish but as remembrance. I am wealth. I am abundance. I am the power that creates it all. And in that instant, you don't just believe it, you know it. This is the shift that changes everything. Once felt, it can never be unfelt. Once lived, it can never be undone. At first, you think it's coincidence. A meeting is rescheduled and somehow aligns with an opportunity you'd been visualizing. A message arrives just when you were thinking of the person who sends it. Numbers, names, events fall into place with an elegance that logic can't explain. But then it happens again and again, until the coincidences become too precise to ignore. You start to understand the world isn't reacting randomly, it's echoing you. Neville called this the bridge of incidents. It's the invisible choreography between your inner conviction and the outer events that fulfill it. You don't control the bridge, you walk it. You follow the path that rises naturally under your feet. Every choice, every nudge, every moment of intuition becomes part of a vast and intimate conversation between you and the universe. You feel guided, but not by something outside you. It's your own consciousness leading itself home. You begin to notice the subtle obedience of reality. The timing of things grows uncanny. Situations that once felt resistant now unfold with ease. Money flows through unexpected channels. People seem to appear at the perfect moment. The right words come to your tongue when you need them most. You catch yourself smiling for no reason at all. It's not arrogance, it's recognition. You see the mechanics behind the miracle. Everything you once prayed for was listening to you all along. It simply waited for you to speak with authority instead of fear. That's the quiet secret of mastery. The world obeys the tone of your inner voice. When that voice trembles, life trembles. When it steadies, the waters still. And when it commands gently and without doubt, reality responds like an echo in a perfect canyon. You start to understand what Neville meant when he said, "Be still and know that you are God." It was never about worship. It was about awareness. Stillness isn't passivity. It's alignment, an unshakable confidence that creation already listens to your every assumption. So you stop asking. You start declaring. You stop begging life to change. You start describing it as it already is. Your words become creative fire, your imagination becomes law, and everything that once felt distant now stands before you, tangible, touchable, undeniably real. But along with this power comes a strange humility. You see that every thought has consequence, every mood its echo. You become more deliberate, more compassionate. You choose your inner conversations with care, knowing they are seeds that will bloom in the days ahead. This is the moment the game turns sacred. You realize creation isn't about greed or control. It's about harmony, about remembering your role as the conductor of a living, responsive universe. You no longer measure success by numbers in a bank account. You measure it by peace. By the way your inner world feels when you wake in the morning, by the ease that fills your body when you walk through a day that once frightened you. And so you live differently now. You speak differently, you see differently. Because once the world begins to obey you, you understand that it was never the world that needed to change. It was only waiting for you to remember who was speaking. There comes a morning when you stop counting the days. You wake without the familiar ache of striving. The race, the reaching, the hoping, they've gone silent. What's left is a quiet certainty, a grounded joy. And as you move through the world, you realize something has shifted forever. Reality bends around you now, not dramatically, not theatrically, but faithfully. Everything flows toward your assumption with precision, so seamless, it feels like breathing. There's no sense of surprise anymore, only recognition. You think it, feel it, assume it, and there it is. Effortless, predictable, law. This is the proof you've become it. Not because of a single grand manifestation, but because of consistency. Because your state doesn't waver. Because even when challenges arise, you respond from the same still power. You've stopped waiting for circumstances to validate your belief. Now, belief creates the circumstance. You notice how people react to you. They lean in when you speak. They listen differently, as if you're carrying something they can't quite name. You realize you're transmitting certainty. It radiates from you like warmth. You've stopped speaking from lack. You speak from fullness. You no longer sell, convince, or plead. You declare. That's how you know the shift is complete. You no longer study the law. You embody it. You live as the one who commands it naturally, silently, without resistance. You remember how desperate you once felt, how often you looked outside yourself for permission to believe. Now you smile gently at that version of you, the one who didn't yet know that imagination is substance, that feeling is causation, that thought is creation. You used to think miracles required effort. Now you see they only require alignment. You used to chase outcomes. Now outcomes chase you. Emails arrive, doors open, numbers increase, but none of that feels like the source anymore. They're just ripples, reflections, confirmations of a deeper truth. You are the law in motion. There's no longer a gap between the spiritual and the physical. The two have merged. Your prayers are your daily thoughts, and your answers are the moments that follow them. You begin to play with reality, not recklessly but curiously. You test assumptions with love and wonder. I assume today flows with grace, and it does. I assume money reaches me easily, and it does. I assume everyone I meet feels lighter in my presence, and they do. It feels like walking through a world that finally learned your language. This is not arrogance. It's the quiet dignity of someone who remembers where power truly resides. You don't bow to circumstance anymore. You don't chase approval. You simply exist as consciousness aware of itself, and that awareness carries its own gravity. It shapes time, it shapes opportunity, it shapes everything you touch. Now you see Neville's words not as philosophy, but as literal truth. Your assumption, though false if persisted in, will harden into fact. You've lived it. You've seen it happen again and again, until the line between imagination and fact dissolved entirely. You've become the living proof, not of luck, not of chance, but of law. You are the cause, and the world, the obedient echo. And as you walk forward into the days ahead, that realization never leaves you. You've stepped into mastery, and from here, there is no going back. There's a stillness that comes after the revelation. Not the silence of emptiness, but the peace that follows completion. You've walked through the storm of doubt, the friction of transformation, and you've emerged on the other side, unchanged in essence, yet entirely reborn. You no longer reach for wealth as something separate. It moves through you like breath, like pulse. You spend, give, and receive without calculation because you know abundance isn't something you hold. It's something that flows when you stop damming the river. Every action feels intentional now. Every word carries power. You speak less, yet everything you say lands deeper. You've stopped trying to convince the world. You let your beingness do the talking. You remember when you used to watch the clock, count the hours, chase the next breakthrough. Now, time bends around your peace. You do more by doing less. You create more by needing nothing. That is the paradox the mind never understood, that surrender is the ultimate act of control. You walk through a city or a forest or a quiet room, and you feel the same presence in everything. It looks like the world outside, but you know it's you. Every sound, every face, every coincidence, a perfect reflection of the consciousness that dreams it. Neville called this the promise, the moment when man discovers God within himself. You've arrived there, not through worship, but through remembrance. The God you sought was never beyond the stars. It was the awareness behind your eyes, the silence between your thoughts. When you speak, I am, you no longer mean the small self. You mean the vast one, the consciousness that creates galaxies and bank balances with equal ease. And with that knowing comes a softness. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to manifest to validate your power. You manifest for the joy of creation, the art of expression, the sheer wonder of watching imagination take form. You begin to use the law for good. You bless quietly. You imagine others free, healed, abundant. And as you lift them in consciousness, your own world expands with them. Because there is no other. There never was. You think back to the affirmation that started it all. I am wealth. I am abundance. I am the power that creates it all. And you realize it was never about money. It was about awakening, about remembering the source that dreams through you. Now the words feel less like a tool and more like a heartbeat. They pulse through you without effort. They are truth embodied. You've come full circle. The seeker has become the creator. The student has become the law. And now all that remains is silence. The kind that hums with infinite potential. The quiet out of which new worlds are born. You sit in that silence, smiling. Not because you've reached the end, but because you've remembered there was never an end, only awareness unfolding itself forever. So rest here, let it sink in. The wealth, the freedom, the joy. They are not coming, they are you. And from this stillness, everything beautiful begins again.